Rob, let's get to it. This is a serious one. Now, this is odd because there have been some tweets, right, about a story that is going to come out. It's not out yet, but it's a story that's going to come out about Robert Sarver, who's the owner of the Phoenix Suns. And it's going to be ESPN. You may know a little bit more about it than me, Rob, so correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's an ESPN story, yes. So this
right. And it's going to supposedly
alleged.
Now, the tweets I saw were not from ESPN reporters, Rob.
Right. No, it was other people saying
is that the
story.
Case with you? Right.
Yes, that the story's coming
it's
out.
Going to come out.
But the Suns put out a statement, Chris, saying an ESPN story.
Well,
right.
let's allege the story allegedly accuses the Suns and owner Robert Sarver of racism, sexism, and other, egregious discriminatory acts. And like you said, the Suns have already put out a couple of statements denying it and saying that, Robert Sarver put out a statement categorically, Rob, denying any racism or sexism or anything like that.
Chris,
so we have to wait and see what happens. But at this point, we're just waiting on the story to come out.
I agree, but I do have to say this, and you know this being in the newspaper business and just the news gathering business. For somebody to put out a statement before the actual story is even published tells you it's very serious and probably, damaging. Because you're trying to do damage control, Chris, before anybody's read anything. Like, think about that. Usually you have to see what it says first, right? He hasn't read the story.
Right.
Adam Schefter didn't send him the story to read ahead of time if they're doing an investigative piece. So what does he really know other than I couldn't help myself. Other than
pick that up.
I know. Other than the questions that ESPN or the reporter asked. You know what I mean, Chris? That would give you insight if they ask for, say, hey, we got some questions about some serious allegations and we want to get a comment from you. That would be their only way of really knowing what the story's about. But they haven't read the story, and the Suns have put out a statement.
Well, but I would say, I think you make a good point, but I would say this as well, Rob. And one of the tweets is from Jordan Schultz, all right, of the Schultz Report. And he said, here's his tweet, Rob. And it came out at 4:30 Eastern time this afternoon. Breaking. The NBA is preparing for a massive story accusing Suns owner Robert Sarver of racism, sexism, and sexual harassment in a series of incidents, sources say. With enough evidence to support such claims, there's a real chance the league would forcibly remove Sarver. So that right there gives him an indication that this is serious.
Right. No, I get that, but the story still hasn't come out yet. I mean, like usually, I'm just saying under normal circumstances.
No, usually
I need to see a story first before I tell you what's true and what's not true. I haven't seen a story.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but what he says, he basically just says, I haven't, committed racism and sexism and so on and so forth. I mean, I can read a portion of his statement, but they put it out on their own Twitter, the Phoenix Suns on their Twitter. And again, Sarver very adamant about, here it is. First and foremost, I reject any insinuation of personal or organizational racism or gender discrimination. I despise language that disrespects any individuals regardless of race, gender preference, or choice. Such language has no place in business or at home in what I consider Suns and Phoenix Mercury family. So on and so forth. So, like I said, Rob, we have to wait and see. Look, I've dealt with Robert Sarver. Haven't talked to him in years, but, dealt with him back in the day a lot more than I do now. But, it was fine. I mean, I don't know enough about him to
and
say
just the way he
whether or not I
treated
think
you doesn't
these are
mean
true.
that like
Oh, right.
when people
Exactly.
say
Doesn't
that all
mean
the
he's-
time, like, hey, well, I talked to him. He was a nice guy to me. That doesn't mean anything. We get it. You could say that you had an
Right.
interaction and it was nothing, but that doesn't prove anything in a positive way
No,
or
not at
negative
all.
way about what he was doing to other
Not at
people.
all.
So people got to be careful with that. But this is interesting, just that ESPN is a partner with the NBA, Chris, okay? They're not going to
Right,
put a story out about an owner that's going to damage, right, like the relationship, and they must have enough information
Well, they could,
to
but
run the
they might not. They
Right,
could.
but I'm saying
yeah,
because-
you're saying lies, right? Yeah, you
right,
better
because
make
they have
sure
a,
that
because
bad
they have
boy
a
is true.
relationship. You know what I mean? Like you might
Right.
run a story if you're doing a story on something else and you don't have a business deal. There's no $1 billion TV package on the line, and you might do the
Right,
story.
right?
But there's a relationship here, and I can't believe that ESPN would be willing to put out such a story without contacting the league, the commissioner, whatever. This is what we got. We can't turn our
Right,
backs.
right.
We're a news gathering organization, and we do stories. Just like we did with the NFL and
Absolutely.
collusion. I mean, not collusion, concussions. Right, Chris? They had to do those stories. The NFL didn't like it.
Right,
ESPN said, we
Right.
got to do our job, our business.
right. No, this is going to be interesting. I mean, the biggest reputation about Sarver, and you may have even heard this, Rob, is that he's cheap. Like that, over the years, that's been the view of Sarver, is that he's cheap and the organization under his ownership is not well run, which is why they've been bad up until last year they had been a decade without making the playoffs.
Right.
And people felt like he didn't, just didn't put enough money into the organization. You see now, they weren't willing to pay DeAndre Ayton, Rob, the max contract. And so that's been his image. So we'll see. I can't wait to see the story.
But they do
and
have a
see
black
really
coach and a black
it's
general
lot of-
manager, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yes. Monty Williams is a great head coach. And James Jones,
Right, who
did a
won the Executive
fantastic
of the
job
Year,
last
Chris.
year. Yeah. So there's that. They've also had him in the past. Frank Johnson, I believe, was a coach there. Lance Blanks was a general manager there. You probably know Lance from Detroit.
I know Lance real
Remember
well.
Lance Blanks?
Yeah, I know Lance.
So and again, it doesn't mean that
Alvin
there
Gentry
wasn't
was
stuff
coach
that went
there?
on. Right.
Alvin Gentry?
Right. Yep. So there is all of that, and we're not accusing or exonerating. At this point, we have no idea. Like everyone else, we're waiting to see the story. We just find it interesting, as Rob said, that they came out and attempted to get so far in front of this. And that is a bit unusual. But, we'll see what comes of this, Rob. But the fact that this reporter threw it out there, that this could be like a Donald Sterling situation.
Right. That's the way he
It's
painted
very
it.
interesting.
Right. And with Donald
Yeah.
Sterling, remember, there was always stuff about Donald Sterling, but until they actually had the audio, Chris, that changed everything. So I don't know what they have on Carver, and it says that they got this evidence.
Sarver. Yeah, Robert
Sarver, I'm sorry. Sarver.
Yep.
That's the part that, you just don't know what they have.